In the dead of night, shadows streak across the Russian border. Precision missiles, born from European ingenuity, slam into a fortified chemical plant deep in Bryansk, obliterating production lines that fuel Moscow's war machine. As flames light up the horizon, whispers echo through Brussels corridors. Has Ukraine's bold strike just tipped the scales in Europe's most dangerous geopolitical standoff? Sources indicate this could cripple 40% of Russia's propellant supply, unraveling their offensive edge and forcing a desperate scramble. The EU watches, hearts pounding. Is this victory or the spark of wider chaos? If you're gripped by these unfolding power plays in European affairs, hit that subscribe button now. It's like getting insider access to the continent's hidden chessboard without the diplomatic passport. Let's step back to understand how we arrived at this pivotal moment. The war in Ukraine, now grinding into its fourth year as of late 2025, has reshaped the European Union's foreign policy landscape like never before. According to EU reports, Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022 caught many in Brussels off guard, exposing fractures in the bloc's energy dependencies and defense postures. Initially, the EU responded with unprecedented unity. Sanctions packages rolled out in waves, totaling over a dozen by mid-2025, targeting everything from Russian oligarchs to dual-use technologies. Sources from the European Commission indicate these measures have slashed Russia's GDP by an estimated 5 to 7% annually. But at a cost. Europe's own economies grappled with inflation spikes and energy shortages, fueling internal debates among member states. Key players emerged early in this saga. High Representative Josep Borrell, the EU's top diplomat, became a vocal advocate for robust support to Ukraine, arguing that any weakness would invite further Russian aggression. According to statements from Borrell's office, the EU has funneled over 100 billion euros in aid to Kyiv since 2022, including military hardware through the European Peace Facility, mechanism once seen as symbolic, but now a lifeline for Ukrainian forces. On the other side, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and Slovakian leaders have pushed back, citing economic burdens and advocating for negotiations with Moscow. Reports from EU summits describe tense closed-door sessions where Orbán's veto threats nearly derailed aid packages, highlighting the bloc's fragile consensus. Motivations here are layered. For Germany and France, bolstering Ukraine preserves the post-World War II order and deters threats to NATO's eastern flank. Eastern members like Poland and the Baltics, haunted by Soviet-era memories, see it as existential survival. Yet, as one anonymous EU diplomat confided to Reuters, "We're walking a tightrope. Support Ukraine without provoking a direct NATO-Russia clash." By mid-2025, the conflict had evolved into a war of attrition. With both sides facing ammunition shortages, European defense firms ramped up production. But according to a RU-SI report, Europe's fragmented industry struggled to match Russia's wartime output, which had tripled artillery shell production through North Korean imports and domestic surges. This asymmetry set the stage for Ukraine's increasingly audacious deep strikes into Russian territory, enabled by Western weapons. Sources indicate that permissions for such operations shifted gradually. Initially restricted by summer 2025, the US and key European allies quietly greenlit limited use of long-range missiles against military targets in Russia proper. EU diplomats say this was driven by Russian advances in Donbas, where Ukrainian lines buckled under relentless barrages. Enter the Bryansk chemical plant, a nondescript facility in Russia's Bryansk region, roughly 100 miles from the Ukrainian border. According to Ukrainian military statements and verified reports, this plant, officially known as the 186th Chemical Plant, plays a critical role in Russia's defense industry. It manufactures gunpowder, explosives, and solid propellant components essential for rocket fuel in systems like K-59 cruise missiles, TOS-1 thermobaric launchers, Grad rockets, and Uragan multiple-launch rocket systems. Analysts from the Kyiv Post and other outlets describe it as a linchpin, with some estimates suggesting it accounts for roughly 40% of Russia's overall rocket propellant production capacity. Its destruction, sources indicate, could disrupt the supply chain for thousands of munitions, forcing Russian commanders to ration firepower on the front lines. The strike unfolded on the night of October 21, 2025. in a meticulously planned operation that reads like a scene from a Cold War thriller. According to Ukraine's general staff, a combined missile and drone assault targeted the plant, with British-French Storm Shadow cruise missiles, air-launched from Ukrainian Su-24 bombers, serving as the primary weapons. These stealthy, precision-guided missiles, each carrying a 450-kilogram warhead, navigated low-altitude paths using inertial guidance and digital scene matching to evade Russian jamming. Escorting them were around 20 low-cost FPV drones, some acting as decoys to spoof radars and draw fire from Panzer S-1 air defense systems. Reconnaissance drew from commercial satellite imagery and Ukrainian drones, confirming the plant's peak operational status via thermal signatures. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the missiles struck, penetrating reinforced concrete and igniting secondary explosions. Russian telegram channels and geolocated videos showed massive fireballs and a toxic plume spreading via the nearby Desna River. Ukrainian sources claim the blast destroyed assembly lines, cooked off about 25% of stored propellant stocks, and severed a key 50-mile logistics corridor, leading to immediate supply disruptions. Former SBU officer Ivan Stupak, in an interview with Espresso TV, described the facility as left in ruins, emphasizing its unique role in producing compounds vital for Russian missiles used against Ukraine. No civilian casualties were reported, but the environmental fallout from chemical spills raised alarms in neighboring Belarus and even EU border states. In the shadowy halls of EU headquarters, reactions were muted but telling. While no official EU statement directly addressed the strike, likely to avoid escalating tensions, diplomatic sources indicate it sparked urgent discussions in the Foreign Affairs Council. Borrell, according to insiders, viewed it as a necessary setback for Russia's aggression, aligning with his earlier criticisms of European firms exporting arms components globally instead of prioritizing Ukraine. Motivations among EU leaders varied. France, as a co-producer of Storm Shadow, saw it as validation of their military aid strategy, while Germany expressed private concerns over potential Russian retaliation, such as cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. Reports from Politico suggest Orbán used the incident to argue for de-escalation, warning that deep strikes could provoke Moscow into targeting European supply lines. Strategically, the consequences for the EU are profound and multifaceted. Sources from NATO assessments indicate the 40% propellant loss could slash Russian missile ranges by up to 30%, reduce artillery endurance in sustained barrages, and cut sortie rates for rocket systems by a quarter. Logistics chains, already strained, fracture further. Commanders must ration munitions, pulling S-400 defenses from front lines to guard remaining facilities, creating exploitable gaps. Deterrence credibility erodes as Russian offensives stall. Analysts predict a delay in planned Donbas pushes, shifting battles from firepower dominance to gritty improvisation. For the EU, this bolsters Ukraine's negotiating position, potentially accelerating peace talks under a rumored 12-point European proposal. Yet it exposes vulnerabilities. Reliance on U.S. imports for defense gaps persists, with Europe's own production lagging. Power struggles intensify. Will hawkish states like Poland push for more strikes, or will doves prevail, fearing nuclear saber rattling? As the dust settles over Bryansk, Europe's leaders convene in hushed rooms, maps spread out, debating the next move. This strike isn't just a tactical win. It's a reminder of how fragile the continent's security architecture remains. Before we wrap up, if you've been on the edge of your seat with this deep dive into EU intrigue, subscribe now. It's your witty reminder that staying informed is the best defense against geopolitical surprises. But as flames fade and supplies dwindle, one question lingers in the air of Brussels. Can the EU maintain its unity in the face of a wounded bear's roar? Or will this bold gambit fracture the bloc, leaving Europe's future hanging by a thread? The power struggles continue, and the next chapter could redefine the continent forever.